I'd like to continue now with a discussion of Plato's ethics. We've discussed his metaphysics and epistemology, and his ethics are definitely linked to his metaphysics and epistemology. But first, it's important to understand that what Plato was primarily concerned with, one of the things at least, with which he was primarily concerned, was the problem of relativism. Athenian culture had experienced a great influx of new ideas and people around the time of Plato, and there were speakers, people called sophists, who were sort of the rock stars of their age. People didn't have, radio or television or movies, so what they did was listen to plays or go to the, town square to hear inspiring speakers. And the sophists, particularly Protagoras, believed that goodness was all relative. Whatever you believed to be good was good for you, even though it might differ completely from someone else. And different cultural norms were all fine. Everybody's culture was equally valid for those people. Plato disagreed with this. Plato believed that there was objective truth and there was objective goodness, there was objective justice, and of course these things were all to be derived from the topos noitos, the world of thought, if you will. Moreover, Plato was concerned with the issue of hedonism, the idea that goodness is really a matter of pleasure, that whatever gives you pleasure, makes you happy, that's good, and whatever gives you pain is evil. So, using Socrates as his mouthpiece, Plato has an argument saying that, well, this is not true, and a very simple proof of this is that in order to find pleasure from eating or drinking, you first have to be hungry and thirsty. It's not really pleasurable to eat and drink when you're completely sated. So, the greatest pleasure in eating and drinking comes when you are most hungry and most thirsty. So obviously, in that situation, pain and pleasure are combined in bringing you satisfaction. But more than that, Plato really was concerned with issues of justice. What makes for a good society? What is happiness? And in a nutshell, Plato believed that justice was the ultimate virtue, that if people could live a just life, if society could be a just society, then people would be happy, because no one would be oppressed or abused by, improper authority. And in your own life, if you have a proper balance between your desires and your reason and so forth, you would also lead a happier life than if you give in to wanton pleasure. So, Plato has a very specific concept of justice, and for Plato, his theory of justice is based upon the idea of harmony, that a society is just and the people in it are happy when the whole society can exist harmoniously together, everyone doing their part. And the same thing for a human being. When all your different faculties work together to bring about proper satisfaction, then you will be happy. Plato did not believe that happiness was the result of simply indulging in personal desire. He believed that there were virtues which had to guide the way you behaved. Now, interestingly enough, Plato does not really explain completely what virtue is. He doesn't really enunciate a detailed explanation of virtue, other than to say that the virtue is a proper way of behaving, a proper disposition, which is guided by reason. And in many dialogues we have Socrates making the case that reason is paramount, because if you understand what is right, if you understand what is good, then you will do what is right, you will do what is good. So for Plato, virtue was a certain disposition of character to do the right thing, but it was intimately tied up with human rationality, that in order to be virtuous, you had to be wise and reasonable. So this leads Plato to develop a theory of justice in which he compares the justice of the state or of the society with the justice of the individual, and he makes a correlation between the two. Interestingly enough, usually when people are trying to show a correlation between the individual and society, they'll start with the individual and say, well, individually we need this and this and this, so on a societal level we need X, Y, and Z. Plato does the opposite. He says that because society is structured this way and this way and this way, then the individual also has these similar structures. Let me give you an example. Plato explains very clearly in the Republic that society has three components. They're the leaders, the rulers, or the ruler, if you will, who guides the society with great reason. Then there are the soldiers, who represent the component for self-defense. They protect the society. And then, of course, there are the craftsmen, the artisans, and the farmers who provide the material things that we need to live on. Now, Plato makes a correlation into the individual and says the individual soul or personality has three distinct parts. We have human reason, which seeks knowledge and wisdom and understanding. Then there is the desire or passion or spirit of self-defense. We want to protect ourselves and make sure that we live. And then thirdly, there are the bodily appetites for food, hunger, sex, whatever. These bodily appetites are what drives us on a daily level. In order for the individual or the society to be happy, we must have a certain kind of justice, or, as Plato describes it, a certain kind of harmony between these three different faculties. So on the state level, to start at the bottom, so to speak, the appetites, the farmers and artisans and craftsmen need to provide things, but society must act according to the virtue of temperance. We must, have moderation in our desires. Otherwise, there'll be problems. Some people will get fat, or society will have, people get greedy, and if people are greedy, there will be injustice. So we need to have moderation on the level of their basic desires. The soldiers need to be courageous in order to protect society, and all of this needs to be guided by wise rulers, or what Plato called the philosopher king, the one who really understands what is good and what is true and what is right. And the same thing occurs on the individual level. We need temperance or moderation to guide our physical desires so that we don't go out and get drunk all the time. We need courage to defend ourselves when necessary, but most of all we need wisdom. We need the wisdom which guides our thinking so that all our other faculties can understand their proper role. This is the correlation then, the wisdom, the courage, the temperance on both the societal and individual level, which Plato felt would lead to justice and happiness.